Please don't forget the money, man.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny, daily counting every single one, I'm seeing plenty.
All right, welcome to the Michael Welch podcast. As you are listening to this, Thursday game should have wrapped and Friday games should probably be hours away. This is your Saturday, August 30th watch guide. 30th, we got a game on the 31st and a game, of course, on Labor Day on the 1st for this college football season, week number 1. So let's tackle your watch guide here as we did traditionally the past couple of seasons here. We have our noon window, our afternoon window, our evening window, our late night window as designated by Eastern time zone tip-offs. Then we'll go through some of our top watch categories to help you set up your Saturday watching. Now, starting with our noon slate of games, we've got 9 of them. Lighter slate than perhaps some folks realize, and as I've realized now that I've started to track this information. But your top watch is going to be an easy one. It's the top watch of the day. It is number 1 Georgia and number 14 Clemson in the Aflac kickoff. ABC, ESPN Plus, currently sitting about 11.5 Georgia's way. I believe this line has gotten smaller, 48.5 point over under at this moment, but those lines could easily move after the release of this. In the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, a good game. Of course, we had Georgia and Oregon most recently as the big opening day game there, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and that did not go the way of the Ducks. However, here, a little bit less travel, and Clemson trying to show that with no transfers and just a lot of in-house coaching up and top recruits that they're able to compete here with one of the best teams in the country who's essentially playing a home game. But will they have that ability here? Of course, Georgia set at quarterback, running back. Brought in the kid from Florida, Travis Etienne's cousin, I do believe. Offensive line should be in good shape. A number of transfers coming in from across the board at the wide receiver position to help give them some new weapons alongside Levitt there. And, of course, the defense should be set with big bodies as well. Clemson should be set on the defense as well. They're a little banged up last year and did lose some bodies, but should be all set on the defensive front. 48.5 looks a little bit high to me, perhaps. I would be leaning towards the under personally. But this should be a great football game. Can Cade McNamara, will he be running the football a little bit more here, using his feet? Of course, you remember last season he got himself in trouble a little bit at times, but he was a true freshman, I believe, and is a sophomore in this game, so he will have an opportunity here for a big opening day game. Wide receivers and some of the skill positions on Clemson you think to be in better shape than last season. But again, a double-digit line here. Let's just hope we get a nice competitive game, and Clemson's right in the hunt here. But Georgia looking to win big. Your top channel flip option here is West Virginia. The Mountaineers were a sneaky 8-4 last year. They are hosting Penn State, currently ranked 8th on Fox. Penn State's favored by 7.5 currently on the road with a 51.5 point over-under. I think we could have a whole lot of defense in this particular game. Very shocking, West Virginia was last year. They didn't fire their head coach, that they've kept the staff around, but we will see what Penn State can do here. Neil Brown returned 7 starters on offense, including his quarterback from last season, Garrett Green, and they will have to try and upend that Penn State defense, which is loaded and deep. Might be one of the best defenses in the country. Of course, the Big Ten is going to have a number of defensive units up there statistically, and they're going to have some problems in the secondary, perhaps giving Penn State an opportunity there, even though they return one of the best running back duos in the country. Same could be said for Penn State. So Penn State, where they start to reflect a little bit of Ohio State action here, they'll get an opportunity early against West Virginia on the road. As for the other 7 games, there's one really big notable to me, and that is Vanderbilt hosting Virginia Tech on ESPN. The spread is just under 2 touchdowns for Virginia Tech on the road. A lot of excitement around Vanderbilt again this season with that program continuing to build there and some starters back. You have to see it to believe it. Virginia Tech's got 20 starters back, I believe. A great quarterback there in Drones, who's rushed for about 800 yards last year, I believe, and a couple handfuls of touchdowns. Throws it, passes it. We've got a great defense that's built, and they didn't have a winning record last year, but the schedule's set up for them to do some damage this season. On my top 10 list of channel flip teams overall to check out, I do like Virginia Tech. I'm going to be watching this game. This is on ESPN. Virginia Tech at Vanderbilt. We do have number 25 Iowa hosting Illinois State on the Big Ten Network. Maryland hosting UConn on FS1. Louisville, first look at that rebuilt team, hosting Austin Peay on the ACC Network. Purdue hosting Indiana State on the Big Ten Network. Pittsburgh hosting Kent State on ESPNU. And Navy and Bucknell on the CBS Sports Network. Heading into the afternoon window, we're up to 19 games, basically starting from 1 to 4 p.m. I only say that because we have this weird Tennessee game at 12:45 that I'm going to shoehorn in there, but it's usually the 1 to 4 starts I kind of group in here. But Tennessee is hosting Chattanooga on the SEC Network. So you'll get your first look at their freshman Nico in that one, and that great offense. I mean, they're going to hang 50 at the half and then pull their starters, but you'll get a chance there on the SEC Network to see that group there. 2 o'clock, we have a series of games. Number 17, Oklahoma State will be hosting South Dakota State. I have this one as one of the channel flip games. Not a lot expected from Oklahoma State by some folks, and a return to the Big 12 championship game expected by others. So high ceiling, low floor perhaps. They were really good in one possession games last year, returned quite a few starters. Alan Bowman, who's sixth year of eligibility, I believe, at quarterback, is really the weak point here on the team. And he's a below average performer, perhaps I would say. Ollie Gordon's a phenomenal running back, though. Led the country in rushing last year, but the line's sitting right around 10 here. I'm not well educated on the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, but they've been in the semifinals of the playoffs of the SCS championship many years running. This will be a game to keep an eye on. It's too bad it's pushed into the ESPN Plus bracket here. 2:30 is Cincinnati hosting Towson. 3 o'clock is Washington State hosting Portland State on the CW. First look of Ohio State comes at 3:30 on CBS. They'll be hosting Akron, one of the bottom teams of the MAC conference this year. Almost a 50-point spread on this one, so we'll see how long starters play in this. We should get to see a number of different quarterbacks, skill position guys, but, it's going to be a scrimmage. 3:30 on ESPN, we'll also see number 4 Texas play Colorado State. Now, Colorado State, I don't expect to be a dumpster fire this year, but Texas is favored by 32 points with a 60.5 point over-under. I think Colorado State can move the ball a little bit. New coaching staff put in last season, and they'll move the ball a little bit on that Texas secondary that's rebuilding from like 115th last year, putting some new faces in place. So if they're able to kind of pitch a low-scoring game here against Colorado State, I think it's a good reflection of what they have moving forward for this season. But just note that Colorado State, the Rams here, can put up some points. 32 just seems like an awful lot there, just of note. Your top game, though, is the ABC game. Florida hosting number 19 Miami. 2.5 points Miami on the road here, but this is a toss-up, really. In Gainesville, Rockin' Stadium. A lot of hype for Miami. Third quarterback in 3 years for Mario Cristobal here, transferring in from Washington State and formerly of Incarnate Word. You do have Cam Ward here. A lot expected of him as well, although I don't know that I really think that he's anything other than a pretty good quarterback. He hasn't always had the top flight weapons, though, at Washington State or Incarnate Word. There will be a number of top-end recruits here on both sides of the ball for Miami, rolling in a number of different recruiting classes for Mario Cristobal. We just got to start to see who the key guys are going to be here for Miami, who certainly has a chance to win the ACC championship. I think they have second best odds now after Clemson, with Florida State losing their opener to Georgia Tech. Florida, brutal schedule, as shown by this Miami rivalry game here. They have Miami, Samford next week, Texas A&M at Mississippi State, Central Florida at Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss at Florida State. Brutal. Not really projected to go to a bowl game. And this is going to be a big one for them. Still, they should be pretty good defensively. Graham Mertz looked like a much better quarterback last year after transferring in from Wisconsin. I still like Miami here. They're my pick to make the playoffs, win the ACC. But this game could still very much go either direction in sweaty Gainesville. 88 degrees, 54.5 point over under your top watch for the afternoon. Indiana will be hosting Florida International on the Big Ten Network at that same 3:30 time slot. Nebraska will be hosting UTEP on Fox. Get an opportunity to look at top 5-star quarterback, new players in there. Get to see what's going on with Nebraska hosting the Miners. ESPN Plus will have Massachusetts hosting Eastern Michigan, Appalachian State hosting East Tennessee State. Neither of those are particularly exciting. UTSA will be hosting Kanishwa State as they've bumped up to the highest level of football here. UTSA bringing in a bunch of transfers. A low-key, probably fun team to watch this year, although they'll be squirreled away on ESPN Plus here in the afternoon. Northern Illinois hosting Western Illinois as well. On the more accessible networks, staying at 3:30, Syracuse will be hosting Ohio State. This could be an interesting game. Some quarterback changes here. Syracuse has a very easy schedule, all things considered. They do have Georgia Tech next week, followed by Stanford, Holy Cross, UNLV, NC State, Pitt, Virginia Tech, Boston College, California, UConn, and Miami. Currently two ranked teams currently on the schedule with NC State on there. No top 15 teams currently. They don't play Florida State. They don't play SMU. They don't play North Carolina. They don't play Clemson. They don't play Louisville. So they miss a lot of the top teams here. And Kyle McCord got plenty of, experience last year playing for Ohio State, transferring in here closer to home, playing for Syracuse. Even if he wasn't high enough caliber for a national championship contending team in Ohio State, and he was damn close, right? He'll be a solid quarterback for the Syracuse Orangemen. On the other side, Miami of Ohio should have not Miami of Ohio, just Ohio. Did that the other day. Should have a really good roster in place there to compete for the MAC. Now, Curtis Rourke is gone. He transferred to that Indiana team, so he'll have a chance at a non-Power 5 squad to show what he has, playing against Florida International at that same time slot. However, new quarterback in there as well, and we'll see what they can do. The spread there is 18 points, so it's possible that this could be a little bit of a feisty ball game here. Syracuse, not a particularly loaded roster, but an easier schedule again. Now, North Dakota, not to be confused with North Dakota State, will be playing at Iowa State on FS1. Iowa State returning a lot of starters. Pretty good last year, good defensively, quarterbacks coming back, expected to compete for the Big 12. We also have Air Force hosting Merrimack on CBS Sports Network, Northwestern in their really weird stadium setup hosting Miami of Ohio on the Big Ten Network. They're only favored by 3 points over Miami of Ohio, the Redhawks there. Interesting, might want to flip over that one, see their weird setup on the side of the lake there, and see if they get upset, possibly by a MAC conference team. 4:15 we'll have South Carolina resetting there with a new quarterback situation. They're hosting Old Dominion on the SCC network, and that will complete the afternoon slate. Oh, of course, Georgia Southern will be hosting Boise State. Boise State favored by less than 2 touchdowns here, going on the road. A very good Georgia Southern team. They got Nebraska a couple of years back. Georgia Southern, Georgia State, all these squads are well coached. Very good at running the football. Georgia Southern was actually a really good passing team as well, top 15 last season. And they're replacing their quarterback. There's a battle going on there. But Clay Helton is at the helm there. Former Power 5 coach with some experience, and a number of top skill position players are back. This could be a very dangerous offense. Again, you keep an eye on where some of the top skill position guys, some of the top quarterbacks are that were at least recruited or scouted or looked at by top Power 5 programs that transfer out and go to lower level schools for possible big impact. And then we look at coaches as well that may rotate in and out. And this is a program that could be very dangerous as well. And they're hosting Boise State. So Boise State could win the Mountain West. The quarterback battle there has been settled. It is not going to be Malachi, the transfer from USC at the moment, unless something else happens there. Plus, the starting job for now, we're going to have Mason Maddox. We do have the returning Mountain West Player of the Year, the running back, Ashton Jante. Something like that. That's going to be close. Glad you don't come here for pronunciations. Defense should be in good shape as well. Boise State's only looking like loss at the moment for sure is Oregon coming up in a couple weeks. But this will be a test for them. Again, favored by less than 2 touchdowns, 4 o'clock on ESPNU. Moving into the evening slate, this is where the bulk of the games are, particularly on opening weekend. 35 games in the 5 to 8 p.m. kickoff time, Eastern Standard Time. Notre Dame at Texas Tech is going to be your headliner here. Before we get to that, in kickoff starting order, your 5 o'clock slate, the game's squirreled away on ESPN+. I'm going to skip over some of the lower level ones here per se. Liberty is going to be hosting Campbell, so we're going to have the Flames there. Huge 5+ touchdown favorite at 6 o'clock. Mississippi State will be hosting Eastern Michigan on ESPN+ as well. California will be hosting UC Davis. I believe that's actually a 5 o'clock kickoff time. Virginia will be hosting Richmond as well. Eastern Carolina, not a lot of expectations this year, but remember they have 2 former Power 5 quarterbacks transferring in there that can make things interesting, and they're hosting Norfolk State. At 6:30, Oregon State will be hosting Idaho State on the CW network. So, your soap operas won't be over there at 6:30. And then moving into the 7 o'clock time slate here, we will have Alabama, ranked number 5, hosting Western Kentucky. That passing attack of the Hilltoppers will be heading to Tuscaloosa, nearly 100-degree weather, nearly 5 touchdown, not quite 4.5 touchdown underdogs. But we'll get our first look at Alabama. Ole Miss will be hosting Furman. The Rebels, of course, ranked 6th, bring back a lot of guys, and then proceeded to beef up the lineup with the transfers on both sides of the ball. ESPN Plus is unfortunately where they will be squirreled away there. Kansas State, ranked 18th, will be hosting UT Martin on ESPN Plus at 7 o'clock. And so will the Southern Florida Bulls. Not a lot expected from this team either. Interesting quarterback, a little bit interesting roster kind of coming together for this team. They're playing Bethune Cookman, again, ESPN Plus, but at least a school to watch for some interesting results moving forward. Baylor hosting Tarleton State, 7 o'clock ESPN Plus as well. Houston and UNLV on FS1. Houston less than a field goal favorite. UNLV, quarterback from last season, transferred out to USC. Some guys moved on, but remember, this was a team that in a very competitive Mountain West last season actually found itself in its home stadium playing in the Mountain West Conference Championship. Will they be able to kind of climb that mountain again? Houston, tough time sitting at the bottom of the Big 12 projections right now. Moving on to we do have Nevada playing at Troy as well on ESPN Plus at 7. Memphis hosting North Alabama. Nevada had a great game last week. Not expected to win more than a couple games this year. Memphis competing for the American title possibly this year. Really good offensively. And finally, moving to the 7:30 slot here. That's where I was trying to get to our juice. I have our top watch, of course, number 7, Notre Dame, heading to play at Kyle Field, College Station in Texas against the 20th ranked Texas A&M Aggies. 46.5 point over under. The field goal is where it's currently pushed to Texas A&M's way. Now, Texas A&M has had some offensive line issues, admittedly. They've had injury issues in general the past couple seasons. Connor Wingman's back there at quarterback. They've lost some skill position guys. Evan Stewart out to Oregon. He's transferred out. Reloading some guys at wide receiver. Have to find out where the real weapons are. Running back might be a weakness until they find out who the true workhorse is. Monsters on the defensive line. Secondary could be a weakness, but I'm not sure Notre Dame can exploit that. Notre Dame. Offensive line might be a problem now. They lost their top left tackle for the season. Defensive line should be strong as well. We will see Riley Leonard in there at quarterback, trying to dodge bodies as the defensive line of the Aggies comes crashing in on him. The low over-under is because of that. Strong defensive lines and possibly overmatched, I should say, offensive lines. Have to see outside the tight end position what Notre Dame's got for skill guys. Defense should be really good as well for Notre Dame. So this could be very much a defensive battle at which quarterback can stay upright. I, of course, have Texas A&M surprising making the playoffs in my predictions. Actually, my brother picked Notre Dame. A lot of folks have. So this could be a very big game right off the bat. But this is the 7:30 ABC game by lean. Not that I'm doing a ton of picks on here. I do like Texas A&M, but this will be a fun game. And the opposite of one that we'll get to later. This is a defensive battle. And one that should be very exciting. Should be a lot of talent that isn't necessarily making flashy headlines, particularly on the defensive side of the ball in this matchup. When your channel flippers at that same time slot on NBC and Peacock is number 9 Michigan hosting Fresno State. Fresno's reloading some pieces. Again, more of a aerial attack, while Michigan will stick to the ground. Not sure about the quarterback position there. Defensive minded. A lot of guys, a lot of starters being replaced, but guys did get some time last year. We expect that to be the strength, and predictions are really leaning on Michigan figuring out the offense while leaning on the defense, right? 3 touchdown favorites here, but keeping an eye on Michigan. Well, possibly a top 3 team in the Mountain West in Fresno as well. Should be an interesting game. Anticipating that Fresno is able to maybe put some points up on Michigan. We'll see. Also at 7:30, Hawaii is hosting UCLA on CBS. 2 touchdowns is where the spread stands. Hawaii, I don't think is particularly impressive. Like, obviously, they're going to spread you out, throw the ball. Shager's been there a while at quarterback. This is their second game of the season already. UCLA was decimated by losing its head coach and transfers and all kinds of stuff. I don't think their quarterback is too bad there. He was in the rotation to start last season. Ethan Garber's finished the season with 1,100 yards, 67% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks. I think he's perfectly capable of manning a decent offense, but not big favorites here on the island. First look of Texas Tech as well at Abilene Christine, or hosting Abilene Christine, I should say, on ESPN Plus at 7:30. 7:45, first look at Kentucky and Brock. It's a Vanguard. It's a different last name. Former backup at Georgia for the past couple of years, taking over a starting position at Kentucky now, hosting Southern Mississippi, 7:45 on SEC Network. Heavy favorites there. 8 o'clock will bring us one interesting game. Georgia Tech hosting Georgia Southern. Almost 3 touchdown favorites are the Yellow Jackets, notably because of the big upset last week. And this is another channel flipper for me, simply because I think Georgia Tech's going to be a good team. Haynes King, good thrower. He can run the football a bit. Jamal Haynes had 2 touchdowns last week. I think they could do a little bit in the trenches if they've shown that. And Georgia State, as I just stated, is another one of these Sun Belt teams that can do some things kind of sneakily. They were a top 30 rushing offense last year, and they're able to do some damage. I just wouldn't put it past the Panthers to hang on a little bit here. And this line isn't completely blown out of proportion, so this could be an interesting one. Also keep an eye on BYU. First look there, hosting Southern Illinois on ESPN+. SMU hosting Houston Christian on ESPN Plus at 8 o'clock as well. San Diego State will be on hosting Texas A&M Commerce on True TV. So make sure to check that one out. Can't miss that as well. Moving on to the late night slate. We have 4 games. This is the 9 o'clock and later window. One of them isn't particularly notable. That is the 9 o'clock New Mexico State Aggies hosting Southeast Missouri State on ESPN+. 10:30, we'll see 2 games. Number 21, Arizona will be hosting New Mexico on ESPN. Arizona's favored by 31. That seems too high to me. But Noah Fifta back out year 2. Had a solid offseason of being coached up as the starter. Top receiver McMillan. Get to see what the defense can do. This could be this one of my top channel flipper teams just to see what they're doing on any given Saturday. Love this team. New Mexico, surprisingly competent last week, although they did have 2 defensive touchdowns. Not a lot expected from them. So just excited to see what Arizona's offense can do. And then Arizona State hosting Wyoming on FS1. Wyoming is always well coached. They're replacing a bunch of pieces. Some of them like running back by committee, I think. It's replacing some skill guys, replacing some back-end defensive players as well in that secondary. But this is always a well-coached team, and I'm keeping an eye on Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham, his recruiting classes, his players there, what's going on. So this could potentially be an ugly game. 100 degrees in Tempe. Neither team is necessarily going to make a bowl game. But that doesn't mean that Wyoming isn't a great, well-coached, interesting team to watch that can cause some problems in the Mountain West this year, or that Arizona State isn't potentially going to do some damage moving forward in the Big 12 that they're in now. So just a late-night game to flip on if you're just chilling and hanging out. And finally, 11 o'clock is a rebuilt Washington Huskies team hosting Weber State on the Big Ten Network, which it's weird to say coming out of my mouth. So if you want to see rebuilt Washington, you're able to get an eye on the Huskies and that situation there. Will Rogers checks in at quarterback, the former Mississippi State Aggie there. Aggie? Yeah, I got that right. Right? Yes. Okay. He's in, and he could be really good, even though the team's, one starter back on defense, bringing in transfers and all that. But he was just abused last year when the intern coach turned permanent head coach on the unfortunate passing of Mike Leach went defensive-minded and ran the ball and did whatever he did and cut the passing attempts per game of Will Rogers in half when he's been a career 40-plus passing attempts per game guy, and that's what he did. So he'll be throwing the ball again in Washington. At least that's something to look forward to, because that could be a team that could pretty quickly get things up and running again if the staff there looks good. And I mean, things look really good at Arizona originally in the past couple of years building there for Jed Fish. It's just no one really knows what to expect this particular season. So there's your basic outlier, your group of games. Now, our categories here, I have your top watch game. Should be no shocker, Clemson and Georgia in the Mercedes-Benz Georgia Dome, whatever it's called now. I have that as your top watch. Big-time players, future NFLers, good college players, big high-impact games, of course. And I think that's got to be your top watch if you're sitting down to watch one game. On the slate, it's that noon game, 9 a.m. West Coast start for the day on that one. Of course, if you want to map out a perfect Saturday, it's going to be Clemson, Georgia. Then you're going to watch Florida, Miami, and then follow it up with Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and then flip on your late night slate, flip through that. So I think that's pretty solid. Your Audible, good game to switch off of the lead game. That's Penn State at West Virginia in that noon slate. If Georgia, Clemson, something's going on there. Your check down or your small screen starlet game. That's Boise at Georgia Southern in the afternoon. Again, former high-level coach bringing in some players, feisty team. They've proven it the past couple of years in Georgia Southern, and Boise State could win Mountain West. Could be interesting. That's at the 4 o'clock time slot. Underrated. Good game. between squads that is not necessarily a high mark on the radar. This is a little tricky in week one, and some of these categories are when you have some overmatched, undermatched type of squads here. Vanderbilt, I'll admit, I don't have a high profile for, but they're playing Virginia Tech. I like that team a lot. This line is relatively close. Both teams should be well coached. And Vanderbilt, if they can keep in the hunt here, stick around in this game. Virginia Tech needs to really beat them, I think, to start to get on the radar a little bit. Again, their schedule is winnable. On their deck, they have Vanderbilt, Marshall, Old Dominion, Rutgers before they play at Miami. They follow that up at Stanford, Boston College before playing Georgia Tech. Then they have Syracuse, Clemson, Duke, and Virginia. So a lot of winnable games in there, but it wouldn't be great to lose at Vanderbilt to start out with. And Vanderbilt themselves, again, a roster that has some pieces in place, and we'll see what to make of them, honestly. You, me, everybody, because it's not on anyone's radar until they, quite frankly, win a game. The other candidate for this would be Oklahoma State and South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits. Very good offensive line again for Oklahoma State. Top running back in the country coming in. But South Dakota could hang right in there with them. Just worth noting that there's some weakness outside of that strong running game for Oklahoma State. Next up, we have our Hail Mary or possible upset game. Just want to tackle something that I haven't quite yet, and there's not a lot on the slate with big discrepancies and competition in some of these early games. So I'm simply going to go with the Arizona State-Wyoming game, as I've already expressed interest in both of those squads, and I think that'd be an interesting late-night slate game to at least get eyes on. And then late-night snack. Since I've already mentioned Wyoming, Arizona State, just keeping an eye on Arizona, putting the ball up in the air and seeing if New Mexico, even in a loss, looks any more respectable. If the Mountain West teams in general look any more respectable, as Nevada and New Mexico did last week, that can make a really exciting conference race. Of course, we already mentioned Wyoming now, Boise State as well. Utah State doesn't have a particularly interesting game at all. That's why I didn't even mention them on the slate. But just seeing if the Mountain West is again going to be a really good squad as well. So I saved these to the last, but of course we have a Sunday and a Monday game, with it being Labor Day. The Sunday game, standalone, 7 o'clock, ABC, number 13 LSU hosting number 23 USC. It's in Vegas. They're not hosting it. LSU is favored by 4.5, 64.5 point over-under. You got to think there's going to be all kinds of points here. Secondary for LSU has not been solid yet. We know the problems with USC's defense as well, so points. Defensive fronts are probably going to be a couple playmakers up there. USC's bringing in some transfers. Presumably they're going to be impact players. LSU still has Harold Perkins, who last year I think bumped back to some linebacker and kind of disappeared a little bit in the grand scheme of things. But he has potential to still be dangerous. So, but still points, right? I mean, the skill position guys, new guys coming in for LSU and USC should be really good. I still want to see the speedster Zachariah Branch for USC, who was a highly touted freshman coming in last year, catching passes from Moss for the Trojans. Didn't do a whole lot with Caleb last year, did return some kicks, but I would like to see him moving into more of a limelight. And then LSU, of course, Garrett Nussmeier stepping up into the starting position spot there after several years of reserve, and some guys basically making it up the depth chart there. So, again, skill position talent should be prevalent, but could have some impact players on defense as well. Should be one of the top games of the of the weekend. Don't miss that on Sunday. Labor Day is a little bit downscale. Florida State already lost. Currently ranked 10th. That number will fall. They're hosting Boston College in Tallahassee, of course. 7:30 ESPN. Labor Day there. That's the second. Sorry if I got my dates flip-flop there. Now they're 16.5 point favorites. Bill O'Brien, of course, now head coach of Boston College. He moved out there to take the position. rebuilding a little bit there, but some experience. And Florida State licking its wounds after a tough loss. And how strong are they in the trenches? Maybe Bill O'Brien will have some sneaky things going for the Eagles there. This could be a interesting game heading into the fourth quarter. Not sure what to expect now with Boston College moving forward, but a competent coach, even if you didn't like the way he ended his tenure with the Texans. And Florida State, really disappointing in their performance, other than that one drive in the fourth quarter against Georgia Tech, so keep that one in mind as well. So we have a nice setup here. Coming out of Thursday, which is already past here, the Colorado game, which is just finished as I'm wrapping this up. They do survive. Very unfortunate, really, for the, not the Buffalo, the Bison there. And a very good ball game. We did have a really NC State getting pushed around for a while there by West Carolina, so they've got concerns of their own. Friday's a little light, obviously. Michigan State, Florida Atlantic tonight, but TCU, Stanford, hopefully a little bit more interesting in the nightcap, followed by Saturday, Georgia and Clemson into Miami and Florida, Texas A&M and Notre Dame in the nightcap, followed by, checking out a little bit of Arizona State and Arizona, into a Sunday USC, LSU, and a Monday Boston College. Florida State gives us a nice setup before we head into some really big games heading into week 2, and we'll bring on LA First Opinions on a few of those as well. So thank you very much for allowing me to help set up your weekend. Enjoy College Game Day with old Nicky Saban there. He's getting his Little Debbie's in, his fun analysis. I'm excited for that. Enjoy the games. Enjoy your weekend. I'll get my NFL stuff up next week as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny, daily counting every single